Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another edition of the Spurs Chat podcast. In this edition, unfortunately, we'll be talking about a Premier League defeat away at Molineux. Wolves 4, Tottenham Hotspur 2. That is our 10th away defeat in the Premier League this season. Spurs are 15th in the Premier League table. Now, we are live on YouTube, live on X, Facebook, and Twitch. So please do get involved. Let us know how you are feeling right now as a Tottenham Hotspur fan. Sorry for any background noise. I'm currently sat in the services recording this podcast alongside 3 regulars. We've got Josh Hughes back with us. Josh, how are you?
Other than the football, all good, thank you.
We'll get into the football in a second, Josh.
Yeah, just
yeah. Silly question. We've also got Gareth McGuinness back with us all the way from Ireland. Gareth, how are you?
Hi, Chris. Just the same old story every Sunday now. I know last week was a 1, but it's normally a defeat now. And this has been carrying on for far too long, where it's just become the norm. So, to be honest, I'm very confused, and I don't know how to feel at the moment. It's very worrying the direction this club's going on.
Yeah, and we've also got channel regular Simon Foxall back with us. Si, how are you?
Yeah, life is good, Chris. I enjoy Thursday. And then we have another self-inflicted disaster show today, and it is driving me mad, to say the least. Driving me mad.
Right, let's get into it. Wolves 4, Tottenham Hotspur 2. Ait-Nouri put Wolves 1-0 up after just 2 minutes. Spence with an own goal after 38 minutes. It was 2-0 at half-time. Booze from the away end at half-time. Tell then got one back for Spurs in the 59th minute. Strand Larsen then put Wolves 3-1 up in the 64th minute. Richarlison getting another goal back for Spurs in the 85th minute. And then Matheus Cunha off the bench scoring Wolves' 4th goal in the 86th minute. As I mentioned earlier, Spurs are 15th in the Premier League table, 37 points from 32 games. Wolves and West Ham right behind Tottenham with 35 points, just 2 points behind us. Now, the match facts and stats. Wolves with 37.7% of the ball to Tottenham's 62.3%. XG, Wolves 2.44 to Tottenham's 1.89. Shots, Wolves had 13. Tottenham had 11. Christ, I can't even get my words out today. Shots on target, Wolves 5, Tottenham 4. Total touches inside the box, Wolves 19, Tottenham 21. Goalkeeper saves 2 apiece. Fouls, Wolves 12, Tottenham 15. Corners, Wolves 1, Tottenham 4. Josh, I'm going to come to you first. Let's get your thoughts on this game today.
Yeah, I mean, it was... it's like watching Dumb and Dumber every single game. It's just mistake after mistake after mistake. The players look totally checked out. You've got experienced players that, doing things that you would expect, a 7-year-old to do when they're first learning to play the game, let alone, at the top level. I mean, it was never going to be an easy game. Wolves are in good form, and we seem to find Wolves to be a bit of a bogey team. But it's just, when you look at the goals, I mean, I couldn't believe how easy we made it for them. I mean, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
You showed the stats there. Once again, Spurs having more possession, but doing absolutely nothing with it. I couldn't care less about possession stats, because more often than not, we do very little with it. We don't seem to have any real quality in the final third. We looked a bit better with Richarlison on the pitch. Johnson, I thought, actually played okay. But yeah, I mean, they look checked out. They look done. And as far as I'm concerned, I mean, how on earth are we supposed to go and get a result in Frankfurt when you need to be motivated? And, when Spurs have been asked to be, motivated this season, when we had, semi-final second leg at Anfield, knockout game at Villa Park, time and time again, they don't show up. No matter what people think about Ange, whether they like him, whether they want him to stay, whether they don't want him to stay, this isn't sustainable. And I hate that once again, we're in a position where a manager's position is untenable under this owner. 18 months in, 2 years down the line, it's the same story, rinse and repeat. And yeah, I don't know. To me, I mean, I'm still fairly young, but in my lifetime, as long as I've supported the club, this is definitely as bad as it's ever been, if not worse. And yeah, I think we're all probably thinking, where on earth do we go from here? We sort of feel stuck between a rock and a hard place. Like, the owner's not going to sell, the manager goes, then who do you bring in? If you bring someone in, are they just going to get failed as well? Players not good enough. It's a grim position to be in.
Gareth, let's get your thoughts on today's defeat.
Basically, how Josh said it was there. He made I think his first line there was about coaching 7-year-olds. I was coaching 7-year-olds this morning. I coach under-8 football at the moment, and my team didn't make as many bad mistakes as that today. And that as I'd be tearing my hair out. Even from a youth coach to see the mistakes that we've seen today, and sometimes I think maybe I'm being too harsh on some of my lads sometimes, and then you see that from professionals today. And it's just totally unacceptable. Schoolboy, amateurish defending. Look, Ange has got a lot of criticism from me as well for the last few months. He has to take his part in today, but I do think it's a case of the players have really checked out and they're not interested. I'd say not interested, but I don't think there's a belief in the squad when they take to the football pitch anymore that they can win a game, and that's a massive, massive problem because as soon as we concede the first goal, we look a beaten team. I know there was a wee bit of a fight back against Frankfurt, and I kind of expect on Thursday to see a better version of Spurs because it's, all we really have left to go for. The players, regardless of what they feel about the manager, they may not get an opportunity like this again in the Europa League. Who knows? Some of these players haven't won anything before, so maybe you'll see a bit of an improvement on Thursday. But as regards to the league games, I think it's pretty clear, Chris, that the players are not interested in this system. They're not interested in what we're doing as a football club. And that is a big, big worry because we are in April, but there still is 6 more league games to go. There's 6 more games for our fans to attend to. And, they must be going there petrified, thinking, even the Southampton game, take them out. Ipswich is the last one before that. We can only beat teams in the bottom 3. That's our level at the moment. Any game now I think we've got left in the league, you'd be really concerned about this team based on what we've seen today.
Yeah.
As their mentality and a belief there that they can go on and look, we can win our next 6 games in the league and it will still be a poor season, but I still think you have a duty to your fans, a duty to your club to go out and take every game serious because at the moment it looks like we could finish 17th in the league. And that is pretty grim. Now, I remember those kind of situations where would we take 17th if it meant winning the Europa League? I think it's one of those questions that, it gets thrown up a lot. But I don't think any Spurs fan, now that they've loved it, would be happy with this. If we won the Europa League, I don't think anyone will forget about the league campaign. So, yes, we'll be happy to win the trophy, but I still think there'll be a real low at the club of what we witnessed all season, like losing over 20 games this season. 17 in the league, but 20 in all competitions, and there's still 6 games left. You've Villa Park, Anfield, where we both lost there this year. That looks like 2 defeats already. Palace, I know they were beat yesterday, but they're flying. Brighton, we don't seem to do well against them. And Forest, they're going for Champions League football. I just don't see us winning any of these games. So it's just really, really irritating, frustrating. But as Josh says, Chris, it's like a deja vu. You could replay a podcast from 2 years ago in April, and it's probably us saying the same things, maybe different, or maybe even the same guests, but saying the same things over and over. And that is just the story of Tottenham Hotspur at the moment. Doesn't matter who the manager is, what the style of play is, what players come in, because a lot of players come in from the kind of these are like new players, a lot of these players, and it's the same kind of results and the same kind of destiny of we have one half decent season and then the second season's an absolute disaster. And as Josh says, me and Josh are around the same age, and we've seen some really poor seasons, but I don't think we've seen one like this where every team in the league would want to play us. Every team. and I was on with Harry Scarf the other night, and I says that if you're a video analyst of Wolves, you could have went on holiday this week. You could have just says, you know what Spurs is going to do, because they just don't change. They play the same way all the time, and at this level, I'm sorry, you're going to be found out because you're playing against professionals on the pitch, off the pitch, and I'm sorry, but this just has gone on far too long. I cannot believe the club have let this go on. We spoke in January that we kind of felt reluctantly that Ange probably needed to go for us to salvage anything out of the season, but it's just been so much misery after misery, and we've been getting worse every week. And I just don't see any way over the next sort of 7-8 games in all competitions how we salvage anything out of this at all.
Yeah, inside Molineux this afternoon, the Wolves fans at one point were singing "You're effing shit" to the Spurs team and us away fans, and they were also singing to Ange Postecoglou, "You're getting sacked in the morning." And then, ironically, a number of Spurs fans actually were joining in on that chant as well. Si, let's come to you. Let's get your thoughts on today's defeat.
Well, it was a self-inflicted horror show. Let's make no mistake about that. And it doesn't matter who the manager is. If players or senior players go out and make the mistakes that they did, you're going to get nowhere. And I'm sick to death. And this is just for me of our alleged leaders coming out in the press and saying, "Oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're fighting for the manager," where their actions do not match their words. That was a lackluster, limp display, and all of those leaders. So if you want to go Vicario, Romero, Maddison, they were absolutely awful today, awful. And we have a big problem with Vicario because the last few matches, he puts the jitters in the defence before we've even got going in a game. And I think we're the third worst at letting in goals in the first 15 minutes. And if you've got a goalkeeper that's flapping and flailing around, that's not going to give confidence to any section of the team. So the leaders, I keep going on about it. They're having a laugh. There are no leaders in that team. I'm really sorry. The only one is Cowlin, who I've seen this season. And he was on the bench. And funnily enough, did we not look a little bit better when he came on? Probably. Because there's a desire there. I never want to see Bissouma in a Spurs shirt again. I'm sick to death of that bloke. He underperforms and, he's got no care about football, in my opinion. A bloke who likes his, did what he did earlier in the season and then thinks it's okay to go up a mountain when you're in between a break. And, I can accept an error from Lucas, the lad's 19-year-old, but Vicario, Romero and Davis, what the hell are you doing? You are the senior players in that team, for goodness sake. And if you look at the first goal, it's just schoolboy stuff. We've got all of our players on the 6-yard line in a line, and they've got 3 on the edge. All ours are in. What is going on? And then you see... you see Davis or Romero for the second run. The bloke who runs across in front is completely unmarked again. And then, lo and behold, we're 2 against 1 on the back stick again. It's just the same old errors over and over and over again. Nobody's taking responsible for them. And for me, if you're going to get anything out of this system, sod playing, the Bissoumas and the other waste of time. Bring in someone like, Josiah Linton at left back for the under-21 left back. Let's get him some game time. Let's let, if we're going to have this team playing on a Saturday, we could have had Spence at right back and Linton at left back. Great. Give the Leo Blacks or maybe Tyrese Hall a go in the midfield. And if anybody wants to tell me that they would do worse than Bissouma, you're having a laugh, I'm afraid. So I think at the moment we're leaderless on the pitch. We're leaderless at CEO director, that's for sure. And this rudderless ship is just meandering onto a sandbank. That's how I see it at the moment. We're just waiting to run aground. And then what'll happen in the summer is all of the rats will desert the ship, like the Romeros, etc. They should have gone last summer. That's my view.
Before we go any further, let's hear from Ange Postecoglou. This is going to be the next 7 minutes or so. This is what he had to say in his post-match press conference.
Hi Ange, how do you sum up this afternoon, your feelings after that game?
Yeah, obviously disappointing result. Funny game because for the most part I thought our football was decent considering all the changes we made. I thought we, for the most part, controlled large parts of it, and always a bit of a threat going forward. Didn't really give them too much, but then obviously we've conceded some pretty poor goals, and that made it awfully difficult to get an outcome today.
How concerned are you by that defending? Vicario had a difficult start to the game. Have you got full confidence that he'll be okay for
1,000% confidence. Obviously we made some individual errors today, which a bit unusual for us, fair to say, but they all happened in one game, and unfortunately we got punished for them.
Just in terms of the preparation for Thursday, so it doesn't seem ideal that there were those errors from key players like Romero and Logan as well.
Yeah, but it's not like they're doing it on purpose. I mean, I think, and those two are, in particular, pretty reliable in those kind of situations. But like I said today, just sort of, a collection of events that were unusual, and like I said, that makes it really difficult to get an outcome for the game.
Could essentially start in Germany now?
Oh, we'll see. I think it was good for Becky and Richarlison and Matty Tell all to get minutes. I think they'll all be important Thursday night for sure. So, especially those three were really good to get some decent minutes into them, and they all felt good.
It feels like this kind of theme, the soft goals that you keep conceding. How difficult is that for teams, especially early ones that just keep knocking you off your feet straight away?
Yeah, look, I think it's a bit different, I guess, today. I thought the goals we conceded weren't really sort of lapses or anything. It was just individual errors, which, like I said, are unusual for us to kind of give goals away like that. But I guess that's what happens, and we got punished today, and like I said, made it very, very difficult for us to get an outcome.
Is there any sort of feeling that minds are distracted, that everything's pointing to Thursday, that's a feasible excuse, or not something else?
No, so I don't think so. I think, like I said, when you look at sort of those things in isolation, they're just things that are unusual for us and for those players in those moments, and it happens. It might happen once in a game, once in a season, but for us it happens sort of multiple times in a game, and but I don't think it's any lack of focus from the players, and I guess from my perspective, I don't think that's a major concern.
So you're going to another away ground, another big atmosphere on Thursday. How do you kind of get the players out of this headspace they'll be in from today?
Well, they shouldn't be in a bad headspace, and I think the game Thursday is massive for us. We obviously thought we played well on Thursday night against them, and probably should have got a win out of that game, but we know that when we play our football like we do Thursday night, we can certainly make an impact. So look, we just recover today, physically, mentally, make sure that the players are in a good space. Like I said, we rested a few today, which I think will help us come Thursday as well. They should be, yeah. Sonny got a knock, and but no point in him travelling today. And with Wilson, as I said before, we're just managing him. But the whole idea was hopefully managing him so he can be right for Thursday night.
I think it's only Leicester and Southampton. What is it about the way forward?
Well, look, there's various reasons for it, but today there's a specific reason for it. We made errors that conceded goals, so you kind of that's all you can analyse, and that's what happened today.
Do you have any update on what you were talking about on Friday? supposed leaking with information?
Well, it's not supposed to leak. There is a leak, and I mentioned it. People are looking at it, but now it's not my sort of priority right now in the next 4 days. The next 4 days is about making sure we're ready for Thursday night.
Just wanted as well from today how frustrated you were that the defensive mistakes happened just when you were coming back into the game. Certainly the last 2 goals were followed by the errors and Wolves goals. How does that really just drive you mad as a manager?
Oh, look, I think, like I said, it's not like the players are doing it on purpose. So, you kind of, you have an understanding that, that's the unfortunate things that sometimes happen in a game of football. Probably be more frustrated if it was something that we did from a tactical perspective or organisational perspective, but they're individual errors. Like I said, the players don't mean to do it, especially Lucas and Romero. I mean, they're 2 fantastic footballers, and what's important now for both of them is that they recover and we focus on the next game.
I know it's easy to say in hindsight, but 6 changes, do you now feel that was the right action, or do you feel you did the right thing in doing that?
You always try and do the right thing, and I guess for us what's important is that like I said, we got some game time with some players, we rested a few, and hopefully that makes us in be in good shape for Thursday night.
And just a quick one on Maddison. He started 4 games in a row. I don't think he's done that before this season. Is he in a good place fitness-wise, or do you just need his creativity?
No, I think he's in a good place, and I think Matters, when he plays kind of regularly, he feels stronger. So I think from our perspective, again, having him sort of in really good condition physically is important, because I think that's when he plays his best football. And the Thursday to Sunday is always a tough turnaround, but I thought he was one of the ones that would be able to cope with it okay. Obviously now with Sunday to Thursday, it gives us extra day to recover, and he'll be fine.
Josh, let's come to you.
Chris, can I ask you something? Just coming out of that, because you see a different game. Sorry, when you're there, what do you think of that thing saying our general play was okay and we controlled the game? Honestly,
I can't believe what I'm hearing. In all honesty, Si. Yeah.
But when you see it a different perspective when you're there. It's like,
If I was a Wolves fan today, I'd be pretty upset at the fact that the scoreline was only 4-2, because I feel like when you see a 4-2 scoreline, it probably seemed a lot closer than what it was. But, Wolves should have won that game comfortably today. And some of Andrew's comments in that press conference, I can't quite believe. That's why I feel like it is very, very, it's very important that all of you give your opinions on Andrew's comments today. And that's exactly what I was going to come to. Josh, let's come to you first on it. Give me your reaction to what Ange Postecoglou said there about the performance, about Thursday, and how are you feeling generally about the manager? Because, as Si said, I was in the stadium today, and there are a lot of very frustrated fans booing again at half-time. There are people sighing about Ange Postecoglou. A lot of people in the chat, you can probably see, live on YouTube right now. There are a lot of people wanting Ange out. But we have a lot riding on Thursday. Of course, he's just said the game on Thursday is massive for us. But as Si rightly pointed out there, he said that we played some decent football in that game. You're on mute, Josh.
I don't know what he's been smoking. I think he's living on another planet, frankly. I loved how he started by saying, a few individual errors, which is a bit unusual for us. I mean, no, that's pretty much every single game and has been ever since he's been our manager. To be honest, I'll be completely upfront. I totally zoned out. I didn't listen to half of what he had to say. I'm so bored of it, because he just comes out with the same nonsense every single game. It is another defeat, and there's always some weird excuse. There's always something that he tries to spin it onto, when actually, no, his tactics are rubbish. He got found out after the first 10 games, after that Chelsea defeat last season. Gary O'Neill went on to, in fact, funnily enough, when he was Wolves manager. He went on to Monday Night Football, said this is how you play against Ange Ball. Funnily enough, every team has managed to do that, and Ange Ball's been rubbish ever since. It just shows he can't adapt. It shows that he does not know how to get the best out of a team in the Premier League. And it shows, I think, what people were. I was generally favourable towards him last season, but I think what it's shown is that the Premier League is a step too big for him.
But Josh, what side you said there? Do you believe that Ange Postecoglou thinks that we played decent football today, or is it just trying to protect his players because we've got such an important game on Thursday?
I think he should take responsibility. He should take responsibility for the fact that he cannot motivate these players at all. It's a young squad, right? It's a generally very young squad. You would think that, if you can't motivate your players for a cup semi-final when you're winning by a goal and you go to Anfield, if you can't motivate your players for Aston Villa in the FA Cup, if you can't motivate your players for a North London derby or a game at Stamford Bridge, if you can't motivate your players in any game, seriously, I'll be honest, I feel bad for the players. I don't think we've got the best squad, that's for sure. I certainly think that there are plenty of players that are not good enough for where we want to be as a football club, but I don't believe for 1 second that there is that little quality in the squad that this is all on the players. I simply don't believe that. Okay, yes, today there were lots of mistakes, but it was telling. You mentioned before about how Matthias Tell was the player that they took to do the media, and I was at Craven Cottage when Tell was the only player that came up to the fans. In fact, he got into the away stand to speak to some supporters, and then after the game, when they were coming out of Craven Cottage and half of them were going off to international duty and some on the bus again, he was the one that was kind of leading by example. And Bergvall was much the same at that Fulham game. And it feels like actually, there's something seriously wrong if these players are dejected in the way they are, because I don't believe that, let's not forget, a lot of these players got us to 5th last season, started the season really well. I don't believe that these players are that bad, that this is the very best that they can give. They just look completely done with it, and they have done for a while. So yeah, I think Ange Postecoglou is delusional.
What do you say to the Ange Postecoglou fans? Because there are still a lot of them out there saying back Ange Postecoglou. I said to you before, Josh, I feel like I've lost my confidence in Ange Postecoglou since that Fulham game, and I feel like I've been very patient. But what really worries me is the fact that we just do not travel well this season. And you speak about this football last season to this season. Yes, we've had injuries, etc. But now we've got all of our players back. And and I know we'll get onto team selection in a minute. I fully accept the team selection, but I don't feel like that was the issue today. But the football is completely different. It was fast, attacking, front foot football last season, and the football is completely different now. And as I mentioned, we do not travel well. 10 away defeats in the Premier League this season, and we've got such an important game coming up on Thursday in the Europa League against Frankfurt, which our season, we're all hanging on to, going far in the Europa League. Let me ask you a very direct question. Do you want Ange Postecoglou to carry on managing Tottenham Hotspur right now?
No, I want him gone. I wanted him gone months ago. We've been on a downward spiral since that Chelsea game last season. Like when people look at it objectively, it's not just take the emotion out of it. This is not something that is a new phenomenon for the club under Postecoglou. We've been in near enough relegation form since the start of 2020, the start of 2024. This has been a continual thing that has got worse and worse and worse. And to be honest, from purely a football perspective, the thing that really concerns me is the lack of runners. Spurs will have the ball, and you'll see Romero sitting on the ball for about 20 years. It feels like time stops when he's on the ball because it just takes so long.
Well, that is a really good point.
No one's running. No one's working for each other.
Because, but from last season, even in the pre-season, and was constantly shouting, move the ball faster, move the ball forward. It was all about that forward pass. And now a lot of it is sideward passing, backward passing. And as you've mentioned, this season, no matter who the personnel is, the players are holding on, for the ball for too long. And Vicario, we'll come on to talk about him as well. Distribution and back passes and, all sorts going on at the back there. Why is it so different for you?
Because he got found out, and the guy doesn't have any alternatives. But I think he's checked out as well, to be honest. When he starts blaming the fans, when he starts having a pop at the fans, when he starts, and Chris, you've been the one filming the most of this. When you're by the tunnel at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium and he gets a bit of jib from one of the fans, how many videos have you posted on your channel of Ange Postecoglou reacting to something a fan has said? And, I agree. He definitely used to shout. It was very, I'll never forget that pre-season video when I think they were out in Korea, when he started shouting at the players. And he just stands there emotionless, hands in his pocket. It's very off-putting. And look, I don't think it's a matter of preference, but I personally like a manager who gets involved with the fans. And, I can't believe that a year ago we were singing I'm loving Big Ange instead and all this stuff. And it's just crazy that the drop off, and I don't think he should be in charge for Thursday. He's given us absolutely nothing over the last year to justify that he is going to get anything out of these players. And I think the only thing I'm hoping for, because obviously I want to see Spurs progress and win the Europa League, it's the only thing we've got left, is get rid of him, and hopefully you can get a bit of a reaction from the players and a bit of sort of a sense of relief that he's gone, and fingers crossed that they have a bit of a reaction. But we're really clutching at straws if that's the best we can hope for, because right now, I think we're living in dreamland if we're thinking we're going to get a result in Frankfurt against a very decent side, very well organised side. I think that's the only hope.
Gareth, let's get your thoughts and opinions on Ange Postecoglou, the press conference, and Postecoglou in general.
I think he's discussed it quite well there. I kind of, you asked Josh the question, I kind of agree with one of the things you said, that I don't think Ange particularly enjoys watching the team. I don't really think he believes deep down that it's decent football and that we're in control of games. I think it's just, he knows it's a fragile dressing room. There may be some players that are still on side. The likes of Bergvall, the likes of Spence, the likes of Porro, Solanke possibly. I'm trying to go with ones that I think maybe Van de Ven's on his side. Vicario, I think he was, but judging by his last few games, I think he's maybe joined the group like Romero and Madison and those type of players that are clearly not playing for him. But I think he knows deep down he's beaten. That's why you're seeing he's getting very snappy. He's an absolute nightmare to interview for the media now. They say one thing and he takes it very personally. He's becoming very paranoid that every question at him is they try and get a reaction out of him. And I think you're seeing it's very similar to what happened to Erik ten Hag. It almost feels like he's being bullied by the media, but he's bringing it on himself by some of the stuff that he's saying, some of the stuff that he's doing. Ten Hag would come out after a defeat at United and say, "Oh, we played well," or "We played well for parts of the game," and that's not really what we watched. You can't lie to the fans, and you certainly cannot lie to professional players. So they will know this isn't good enough. Most of those players are international footballers or have played for all our top managers, so they will know what's right and what's wrong. And I think when they come in, which is happening every week now, on a Monday, they'll probably review the game from the weekend. And I'd love to be a fly on the wall. They know what Ange is saying to them, because I think they're probably sitting there maybe in disbelief of maybe what they're being told, that this is the way we're going to do it, and don't worry about this, forget about that game. We're going to keep doing, we're going to keep playing our way. And I'm surely somebody in that dressing room has probably stuck their hand up and go, well, Gaffer, we've lost 6 of our last 7, 8. I don't know what it is, but Southampton was the only one before the Ipswich, which was 1-1 since February the 22nd. And before that there was an awful run. Before that, the wee trio results against Brentford and Man United. There was an awful run of games between Christmas and the New Year. So, I don't really know what Ange is saying to try and affect it, to try and change it. And I think that's probably where he's lost some of the players along the way. That, I think it's that saying, as people say, is keep doing the same things over and over again, expecting different results, is insanity. And it kind of feels that it's got to that point where Ange is refusing to change. He's not reading the room, that the players need help. And that's the biggest thing. As a coach myself, you're on that pitch, you're on that sideline, you have to try and help the players on the pitch. And if they're not performing, that's down to you as a coach. Now, I still think, regardless of who the manager is, the players should be given 100% effort. If they're being found out tactically, then that's all on the manager. I do think at the moment that because the tactics are so, the players are so against the tactics and they're so against maybe what they're being advised to do, that there isn't 100% commitment, there isn't 100% effort. And it's very easy for us to sit here as fans and say, well, you should always give 100%, which they should. But if you're so demoralized, lacking in confidence, lacking in belief, it's probably not as easy to give 100%. So there's a real trade-off between the two at the moment. And I think that's what we're seeing being served up on the weekly, that we're seeing players not giving 100%. They're playing with such a lack of confidence that, like you said, Chris, the football isn't as quick. The decision-making's poor. They're all traits of teams that are lacking in confidence and lacking in belief and lacking massively in direction from what I'm seeing. The set piece issue, I don't think has ever been sorted. We haven't been conceding as many goals, but that doesn't mean to say we've been getting any better at them. I think that's been a frailty of this management team from day one. That's not improved. I think the playing out of the back has become so choreographed, is it? Yeah, like a dance routine. It's the same stuff over and over again. The teams have really caught on to it. That Romero gets the ball and passes it to Brennan Johnson, who has to come back 50 yards on his own half, gets pressed on the corner, and we lose the ball. Teams have just completely found us out in every aspect of our play, and that's why you're seeing such bad results. And as Josh says, I just don't know how the players, find a way to go to, we mentioned about our poor away form. I wasn't overly impressed with Frankfurt on Thursday night, but from what I know about Frankfurt, they're very much a different team at home. They're another team that struggles away from home, but are very, very good at home. It's going to be a rocking atmosphere, and there's no evidence that we've seen that we can handle a hostile atmosphere. And if we were to concede first, Chris, I think it only ends one way, and that's probably with a 2 or 3-0 defeat and us going out with an absolute whomper. I think for us to have any hope, it'll have to be us getting the first goal, and maybe that can give no wee bit of confidence. But I mean, I had no confidence for any game recently, and I was happy enough with the performance on Thursday. It wasn't perfect, but it was kind of the best of what we've seen for a long time, and that's the only hope that maybe we can get. The players might go that extra mile on Thursday because it is an opportunity to win a trophy. And as Josh says with Ange, I'm not sure he wants to be here anymore, but he has an opportunity as a manager to end this trophy drought at Spurs. And regardless of what anyone says, if he was to win the Europa League at Spurs and be sacked after it for a poor league campaign, he can say, well, I don't want no other managers done for 16, 17 years at Spurs. So, I mean, you have that trade-off. Ten Hag won 2 trophies at Man United, but the fans were never happy. And I think at the moment, regardless of what happens, if we somehow by a miracle won this trophy, I don't think there's any way he can stay on. The fans are against him. It's toxic. The players are clearly not on his side. And I think Levy has let this run on for far too long. I think he's under a lot of pressure, of course, from the fans, but I think that's a major he's been blindsided by that. I think that I think he maybe thinks if he sacks Ange, more pressure comes on to him, or he thinks that maybe I've sacked managers too early before, I'm going to let this play out. But it's been played out for far too long, Chris. And I think even you saying that you're kind of against him. I was one of his biggest supporters. I'm against him. Josh gave it long enough. You know, I'm not sure how Say felt from Ange.
Yeah, Gareth, I didn't say I was against him. You know, I support, you know, the players and the manager, and I get what Andrew's trying to do, but I just said I lost confidence since that Fulham game.
Sorry, not that nobody is against them. Of course, we want any manager to win games, so we're always with him until he's not the manager. But what I mean is, you've lost the confidence and belief that he is the right man to lead us forward.
So I know for the last 10 minutes you've been absolutely itching to talk about Ange Postecoglou and the press conference. What's your reaction to Andrew's comments first of all?
Well, first of all, personally, I find it a bit insulting that he comes out there and tries to tell us that coal is diamonds when we can actually see it's coal. You know, coal does become diamond, but doesn't at the moment. So don't talk that rubbish that and expect us to sit back and accept it as Spurs fans. I'm struggling, and I listen to what Gareth and Josh has said, but I struggle with one thing, and this is where is it Postecoglou's fault, or is it the players, or the bigger picture? So for me, where I look at it is, how can a team play the football that they did on Thursday and pretty much the same players perform so abjectly the following Sunday? That is nothing to do with formation in my head. That is nothing to do with anything other than the mindset of the players. And I think that is a problem. And I'm going to come back to where I think the real problem is, and I won't move away from this, is Daniel Levy is the problem at our football club. And what happened after the Poch years, and, obviously probably during the Poch years, Kane and Son papered over so many cracks and put us into league positions that we wouldn't have achieved unless we had two exceptional players. The rest of it is pretty average. The Poch side was good when we had Alderweireld and Vertonghen and Dembele at their peak. But what we're seeing at the moment is a team devoid of two world-class players that papered over the crap of the levels that were below it. And for that, I'm sorry, I blame Daniel Levy for. I blame Daniel Levy for appointing Mourinho, for appointing Conte, for appointing Ange, because ultimately, who made those appointments? Okay, so that's one part of it. But for me, Ange Postecoglou, you cannot come out and try and tell us that coal is diamonds. That is complete and utter rubbish. And also, you need to explain to the fans why the players think it's okay to play in certain games and not others. And I have another thing where I think I actually feel for Ange, although you can say I'm just showing a bit of empathy with him. The problem with our club, as I said earlier on in this in the programme, is that we lack leadership from the top. When does Levy or Munn or anybody else, or Donna Maria Cullen, or take the flak from the press? They leave Ange take it all. And therefore, because he takes all the flak, all the Spurs fans then think, oh, it must be down to Postecoglou, which a lot of it is. If the players have lost their trust in him and their trust in the system he's asking them to play, I get that to a point. But I still think that there is a bigger problem at the club. Conte pointed it out, did he not, about the mentality of the players? And if you go through I've been thinking about this the last few days, if you go through the players that have gone out of the club, everybody was saying we need to get rid of Lloris because of his attitude. We need to get rid of Dyer because of his attitude. We need to get rid of X, Y, Z because of their attitude. Davinson Sanchez wasn't good enough. This one wasn't good enough. That one wasn't good enough. Well, actually, what is good enough anymore? Surely, if you have a playing style that is consistent through a number of years, not just 2, and I'm going to blame Postecoglou for this, Chris, I'm with you, the players aren't playing the way that they initially did under him. And that can only be down to the player, because I'm pretty damn sure Postecoglou isn't saying to them, what we want you to do today, lads, is forget about the fast pressing game I've been trying to drill into you for the last 2 years. I want you to play this slow build-up stuff. It's just the players are incapable or aren't intelligent enough to play the football that he's asking to play. Now, again, is that the right football? That's another completely different question that we can all agree or disagree on. But
so the other
players
thing
aren't doing what they're asked.
I was going to say, what none of you have mentioned so far is the fact that Ange Postecoglou made 6 changes, which we'll come to in a second. Talk about the starting 11, but you've got to think that some of those players, are almost auditioning to play on Thursday in such a big game for the football club. So, out of all those players today who are in the starting 11, who actually did impress you? Because this is about taking opportunities. I say this so often on the podcast, week by week. When a player gets an opportunity to be in that starting 11, you mentioned Bissouma, very disappointing again today. When you get these opportunities, you've got to grab it.
It's about taking responsibility, and none of them have. In fairness to Ange, last Sunday, Johnson played well, scored 2 goals. He gets rewarded with a place in the team on the Thursday night. But those players coming in today clearly weren't good enough. Ben Davies had a shocker. Now, he's normally pretty steady, I'll give him that. But no, you were terrible today. You were terrible. And if you look at Solanke, he's so out of form, it's unbelievable. But then again, I could say that we don't make him any chances, do we? So again, it's all right playing him, but you've got to make him chances. And, as for players stepping up, I think they've gone the other way. Take Romero. He clearly doesn't give a toss about the weekend games. I'm sorry. I've heard people saying that, I've seen people saying, well, he just made a mistake and he's the leader and he's this, that and the other. Is he, I was going to swear then, but I'm not going to. Is he hell? He's not a leader. He just shows by his behaviour that he's not a leader, because at the tough moments, that's when you want your leaders to stand up. And every time we've had tough points this season, where have Son, Maddison, Romero, Bentancur, whoever you want to name, where have they been? When we've got a flat track bully game and they all play well, they're all fine, aren't they? Everything's dandy. We don't have leaders. And again, if you want to go back to that, is Ange to blame for that? Possibly. If he said to the recruitment team, I want a number 6 bastard who's going to stir this lot up and play them, none of us will ever know that. But I just go back to good teams of other teams and good teams of ours. You have to have a strong spine. You have to have your Graham Roberts. I keep going on about it. You have to have your Stevie Perrymans. You have to have the players that will basically pin the others up by the throat in the dressing room because they're not trying enough. I think we do have one of those, and I think his name's Dejan Kulusevski. But the rest of them, I'm not having it. And say the leadership problem, I keep banging on about this, fish rot from the heads first, and our head has been rotten for years and years and years.
As Josh mentioned earlier on, Matisse Tell did the player post-match interview after the game. This is what Matisse Tell had to say. And I must say, I feel disappointed that Matisse Tell has had to do this, because he is a 19-year-old player, an on-loan player. I would have expected one of the senior players to come out and say exactly what they feel on today's game, but no, it was Matisse Tell.
Matisse, thanks for joining us. Look, we're down in the tunnel area. We can hear the Wolves players celebrating in the dressing room. It's a difficult day for us, isn't it?
Yeah, it's completely difficult, and we know that, but we have to go. We can't give up. We can't give up. We have to learn on this situation and just go again and show who we are, and just go.
It started with a difficult, we conceded early again, didn't we? But look, we fought our way back into the game. But every time we seemed to pull a goal back, we just conceded another, didn't we?
Yeah, what I said is it's about concentration. We have to be concentrated. The first minute is until the last minute, and yes, today was unlucky for us. I think we showed some good things, but yeah, we did a lot of mistakes today, and yeah, that's why we lose.
I mean, how difficult was it for someone like you who comes into the team today and you want to do your best and you've scored your goal, 2-2 in the Premier League, but obviously we lose 4-2. It's difficult, isn't it?
I'm very happy to score my second goal in the Premier League, but I'm a person to have to look of my team, always on my team, and yes, I scored, but we lost, and that's I'm not very happy about.
It kind of don't matter, does it?
Yeah, but we have a good game, big.
Josh, let's come to you. Let's talk about the starting 11 today, because Postecoglou made 6 changes to the team that drew 1-1 against Frankfurt on Thursday. So the team was as follows: Vicario, Gray, Romero, Davis, Spence, Saar, Bissouma, Maddison, Johnson, Solanke and Tell. On the sub-bench today: Bentancur, Bergvall, Kinski, Kulusevski, Moore, Pedro Porro, Udogi, Richarlison and Van der Ven. Firstly, Josh, what did you make of the starting 11? Because I think it's fair to say all of us Spurs fans expected a lot of changes. And I think it's also fair to say that a lot of us accepted those changes because of Thursday in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, Vicario in goal, the midfield three that actually was our main midfield three when we started so well under Ange when he arrived. And then, you know, a player on loan from Bayern Munich, Solanke and Johnson, you know, that's not. I'm looking at the midfield and the attack and I'm thinking, yeah, okay, this is interesting. I like the look of this. Maybe Tell will give us something a bit different to Son, who, you know, I think it's fair to say he's been fairly poor for the last couple of years. He's also progressively getting worse, although I still love him. I thought, well, it's good to see those three play. Backline is what it is. We've played many games with a backline that looks like that. Wasn't overly worried. Again, I think we all accept that the season's finished as far as the league is done. So, you know, everyone's thinking about Thursday and thinking about going through, hopefully, against Frankfurt. Of course, we had to win that game last week to give ourselves a better chance. But and look, you're showing Romero right now. I think this guy is a coward. I cannot stand him. This guy gets given the armband. I've never once heard him do an interview in English. I've never once heard him be put in front of the cameras. I think he'll do the occasional interview with Argentine press. But one of my mates I was on the phone to said apparently he was very, very quick to go down the tunnel. Yeah, I mean, I don't understand why he gets given the armband, but yeah, it's hard. It's hard really to say anything else. Look, the lineup is what it is. I think no one's going to complain about prioritizing Thursday. I will take some positives, which is that Kulusevski's back, Richarlison's back, and you know, you were saying in terms of were there any positives? I thought Richie actually looked pretty good when he came on. He was working hard. And I think that's maybe a difference between him and Solanke is, you know, Solanke works hard but can go missing in games. And Richie, although a lot of fans don't like him, I always like the fact that he is constantly trying to get stuck in. And obviously now you're showing Brennan Johnson. I thought Brennan Johnson played pretty well today. I've been quite critical of him in the past because I see what a good player is there. And I think, you know, I'm kind of always expecting that bit more from him, but I thought he worked hard today. But look, I mean, look at which players went up to the fans and which didn't, and that tells you everything you need to know. Yeah, this does not look like a United team at all, does it? It looks like, you know, everyone's sort of accepted our fate.
Gareth, let's come to you. What do you make of the changes that Ange Postecoglou made today? Because, of course, you know, with Thursday in mind, he had to rest certain players, had to rotate in order to manage the players' minute.
Yeah, he had to rotate. Obviously, you know, despite, you know, this game coming first. It's no doubt that Thursday is a much bigger game and it had to take priority. I kind of expected Sarr to come on, Bissouma to come on. I didn't know what he would do with the front three, to be honest. I did have a feeling Son wouldn't play. I thought Solanke possibly could have been rested, but he was so short in that area at the moment that he feels they had to play Solanke, and Richarlison's not up to speed yet. Tell he haven't overly been impressed with. He's now scored two goals in his last 2 Premier League games. Does he come onto a team on Thursday? I don't know. But I think Brennan tried, like Josh says, but there's a lot more we can see from Brennan Johnson, but his numbers are probably better than his overall performances. But I think Ange is kind of, I think he knows his best team in his own head at the moment, and that's really Bentancur, Madison, and Bergvall in the midfield. I think that's why Bentancur and Bergvall didn't play. I think he'll go with Porro and Udogie at the back, and right back and left back. Romero and Van de Ven will play. It's really just about those attacking areas. What way does he go? Does he go with Slinky again? Does he give Richarlison a start? Does he start Tell as a number 9? Kulusevski obviously has been out a while, but does he have to bring him on? I mean, I think he'll really roll the dice on Thursday. I mean, his whole Spurs tenure relies on it. I think he could possibly gamble with Kulusevski. I think he'll feel he has to play him. Does he play him in midfield? That's the big call, because I think Brennan Johnson, he's our biggest source of goals, probably has to play. And I don't think Johnson can play anywhere else. I don't think he can play off the left. So I think you have to play him on the right, and Kulusevski could possibly come on the midfield. What does he do with Madison then? I don't know. But it wouldn't shock me if Kulusevski come on. I think that's why he got some minutes today. They try and get him up to some sort of speed for Thursday. But Chris, I thought we would get beat today no matter what team played. I kind of expected a lackluster, not really interested vibe. And I know you says there about opportunities. And taking opportunities, but I feel like the likes of Bissouma, as he probably feels that even if he played unbelievable today, he was never going to get the nod over Bentancur anyway. So I don't really think Bissouma feels part of the plans. We might say as fans, doesn't matter. You're getting paid a lot of money. You should come on and perform regardless. But unfortunately, the way the modern day footballer is, they feel like they're doing us a favor, not the other way around. So, I would expect a similar level of performance in the rest of the league games. I think we'll get absolutely smashed at Anfield, no doubt, because they're going to be in title mode, party mode. If they haven't won it by the playoffs, they'll be celebrating it in front of their fans for the first time, or they'll be licking their lips at the thought of we have to beat Spurs to be confirmed champions. And you know what a raging Liverpool team is like. Van Dijk's just signed, or Salah's just signed a new contract. Van Dijk's probably going to sign one this week, so we'll probably hit them at the worst possible time. And I just don't know what way Ange can go about it at the moment, because I just don't think that whatever team he picks, he'll probably not get what he wants in terms of performance level. So he's created this problem. Of course, he had to take a large share of the blame, Chris, but I don't even enjoy watching the games anymore, Chris, because, I've supported this club through a lot of tough times, and the bare minimum I want from the players and the management team is 100% effort and commitment to the cause. And I just don't feel like I'm getting that at the moment. And it's gut-wrenching, to be honest. When you're working all week, when you're working all week,
that's what bothers me as a fan sometimes, because when you don't see 100% effort, and when I said to Si earlier about opportunities, if I don't see them trying to take their opportunity and don't see that 100% effort, that is what does really bother me.
Chris, you work all week. And you evolve your weekend around the Spurs games. Can't wait for the game. I haven't felt like that for a long time. We're in the quarterfinals of the Europa League, and I wasn't even that excited before kickoff on Thursday. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not really confident ahead of Thursday. And it's not even about being confident. It's about having the belief and that sort of connection to the players and the team. That's what all about what football is. I feel a connection to the players I coach. I don't feel a connection as a fan at the moment to this group and this manager, and that's what's really hurting. I should be absolutely buzzing. No matter what form you're in as a club, you should still be looking forward to your quarter-final game on Thursday, potentially, and the Europa League semi-final. And it could be against a favourable opponent, if Bodo Glimt hold on. So, I mean, these should be things you're looking forward to. And at the moment, I just cannot get myself up for it. And that is what's really hurting me as a fan.
Yeah, well, I don't think you're the only one, Gareth, because there were 5,000 empty seats at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on Thursday. I think that says everything. Although we do still have a fantastic opportunity to, try and put a trophy in the cabinet. Our first European trophy since '84. I know some people will probably be saying, "Oh, come on," but you never know. Football's a funny old game.
Have a day off, Chris.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Si, let's come to you. Do you want to add anything else about the starting 11 today before we start talking about the match itself?
No, well, the only thing I would say about the starting 11 is, I do struggle with this, is that Archie Gray, if you've been playing at centre-back and then you want to play him at right-back and then you've got a flapping goalkeeper behind him, for me, I would have played Austin today, because if Vicario gets knock in a European game, that lad's going to be going into goal, having not played any football. So, and would he have done any worse than Vicario today? I very much doubt it. So I just don't see the logic behind, doing that. And I don't see the logic behind unsettling a back line again by putting Archie Gray at right back. If you want to split the minutes between Porro, Spence, and heaven forbid, a proper left back from our under 21s, well, that's different, isn't it? Because they're used to playing in those positions. But yeah, other than that, I don't think I expected anything else. I expected some players to get a rest. But having said that, I also expected Bissouma to be dreadful, and I wasn't let down, was I?
I've got to admit, Si, I do agree with you. When that team sheet came out, I did actually expect Kinski to be in goal.
Well, again, for me, it should be Austin, surely, because, like I said, Thursday night, Vicario gets injured in the first 5 minutes. It's not Kinski that's coming on, is it?
Yeah.
That should be Austin.
Yeah.
So why don't we give him a game? It's beyond me. I don't understand that.
Yeah,
I really don't.
So let's move on to the game itself. Let's talk about the opening goal of the game after about a minute and a half. It was actually Ait-Nouri scoring for Wolves. What did you make of it? Vicario, of course, punched it. I've said on the podcast many times, I think Vicario is a fantastic shot stopper. But when it comes to crosses, he really struggles. When it comes to controlling the ball at his feet and moving a fast pass, I feel like he really struggles. What did you make of Vicario's punch? Because, it went straight out to a Wolves player. Ait-Nouri then put the ball in the net. It went to VAR. The Wolves fans were then singing boring, because, of course, they were waiting for that VAR decision. But what did you make of the goal?
Well, it was a catastrophe of errors. Just look at that picture. Go back to the one you had previous, Chris, if you can. Look, there's all 10 Tottenham players within a yard of the 6-yard line, all 10 of them, and you've got 3 Wolves players queued up on the edge. If you go to the next shot you had, you got Ait-Nouri there, but what it doesn't show is to the right there was another player and there was another player to the left, and it's just absolutely schoolboy defending. And again, for me, I never understand this. If you left 2 players up the pitch, then your opposition has to keep 3 players back to do it. What's changed in the game that makes this ridiculous? But I say, Vicario was flapping like a maniac in the first 15 minutes generally, and he caused the second goal, didn't he, by flapping at something. But yeah, it's just a comedy of errors all round, and if this is what they're being coached to defend with all 10 players within a yard of the 6-yard line, then stuff like this is going to happen over and over and over again. Absolutely pathetic defending. There's nothing else to say about it. It's absolutely pathetic defending. And again,
so
you need blokes.
What do you make of Vicario as a goalkeeper? Because, as I mentioned, the shot stopping I think is exceptional, but everything else, I feel like people are losing confidence in him week by week. And it's funny because one of the opening questions there in Angie's presser, he kind of laughed, the question away and said, well, I'm 1,000% confident in Vicario. Have you lost any confidence in our goalkeeper? Because I feel like the amount of time that teams are now pressing the goalkeeper because they know that he's a bit shaky on the ball. It happened time and time again in that second half. And, the Wolves fans, they were making noises towards Vicario, the fact that he was like a dodgy goalkeeper.
Yeah. No, I honestly, I don't have faith in his commanding abilities from the back, and I don't have faith with him with the ball at his feet. So, and I go back to what I said at the very start of the podcast. He puts the jitters in the back four before, for the first 15 minutes before we've got anywhere, and it isn't a coincidence that teams are pressing up against him, and if you're going to have your goalkeeper flapping around and causing issues for the players around him, not least with the second goal as well, it will undermine the confidence in the back line. But then again, if you go back to the back line, if you keep changing the back line and changing people where they are, you're going to get no continuity anyway, are you? If you go back to players being injured and being unfortunate with that, but it even goes back further than that. If you're going to have a decent balanced squad, injuries aside, you might have a team that you play in your big matches, but you'd have an equally decent back four with a right back, a left back, a custom built left back to go in there, and you would also have a backup goalkeeper that could do it. But no, for me, I've lost all confidence in Vicario because of this flapping and faffing around and with the ball at his feet. And I just think it strikes terror in the hearts of the defenders around him and terror into the hearts of the fans in the stadium. If you're going to play like that, where everybody's on edge before you've even done anything in the game, it's only going to lead to big issues. It's been proven. Look what's happened today.
Josh, let's come to you on Vicario, because after 6 minutes, of course, we were 1-0 down at this point, but after 6 minutes, Spence to Vicario, it seemed a very straightforward back pass. He could have cleared it straight away, but he's trying to play out from the back, trying to play silky football at the back rather than just clear the ball. It was a complete mix-up, and it was very nearly 2-0. What have you made of Vicario this season?
Look, I share concerns about him flapping, but I think we can't really be criticising the guy for playing out from the back because it's very clear he's being told to do that. And he's, ultimately, he's a goalkeeper. If he was that bloody good with his feet, he'd be playing centre midfield, right? I've never liked it. I've never liked goalkeepers playing with their feet.
But they all do. They all do. In this modern game, you look at Ederson, how he plays with his feet. 4 assists for Manchester City so far this season. Yeah. All modern day goalkeepers must be very good footballers.
Yeah, but how many of those assists from Ederson? And by the way, I've seen Ederson have his fair share of dodgy moments as well. But most of Ederson's assists, he's going over the top. Can you imagine what would happen if Vicario played a ball quick over the top? No, don't think so. You've got to be playing it out from the back. I mean, the way we take our goal kicks it gives me a fright every single game. I have concerns about Vicario, don't get me wrong, but you do wonder what on earth he's being, because there's a goalkeeping coach there. And you do wonder, why he's being forced to do something that he's clearly not comfortable doing. And look, I'll be honest, and if that's how we want to play, and that's a modern game, that's fine, then don't have him as your goalkeeper. Play someone who can play better with his feet.
But even the Chelsea away game, Josh, it seemed like Van der Ven was getting really annoyed with the way that we were doing the goal kicks because he was passing it to Vicario just a couple of yards away, and then we were putting ourselves in trouble almost immediately from our own goal kick.
Why do you think we do it every single game? If the manager's not influencing that, why would they do it every single game? I just don't believe that it's anything but the manager influencing. That's how he wants to play. So therefore, in my view, if you want to, if you want to take that risk take that risk, and Postecoglou keeps doing it. I don't personally think that Vicario suits that way of playing, and I don't think he's a terrible goalkeeper, that's for sure. I think he's actually a very good goalkeeper. There's some things I really like about him. I think his shot stopping is superb, and there are many games where we would have lost by a hell of a lot more if it wasn't for him, and potentially some games where we wouldn't have got a result at all. I like the fact that he gets involved with the crowd. I like the fact that he, is very vocal and passionate. But yeah, he's certainly not a great goalkeeper with his feet, and he's certainly not the best at dealing with crosses. Although I would say he's probably improved ever so slightly since coming back from his injury. I think that the second goal, the own goal, I don't entirely blame Vicario for. I think it's slightly tricky because of course it's come off of Spence and gone in, but there were plenty other issues there. But yeah, why persist playing out from the back? It's just another thing that I don't understand with this manager, why we keep doing it.
I'm glad someone has said this. Steve T in the comments here. Chelsea game, nearly a goal down inside first minute. Frankfurt, a goal down in 6 minutes. Game today, goal down within 2 minutes. It then goes on to say, was Anjin until recently, and now he's got to go. I feel like a lot of people feel like that, based on all of the comments that we're receiving in today's stream. Gareth, let's come to you. After 8 minutes, Bissouma was caught out. Wolves then on the break. He had to make a foul, then receive a yellow card early on in the game. After 10 minutes, Tell shot towards goal. It was blocked, deflected through to Sarr. On 12 minutes, Wolves had a chance. Cross from the left. Larson headed over. On 19 minutes, good ball in from James Maddison. It was cleared. And then our first shot on target, our first shot on goal, Bissouma, good shot from him. Sarr saved. What do you make of Bissouma's performance today?
Criminal. I've seen people locked up for this. I mean, ridiculous. No real intensity, no real authority in that middle of the pitch. Just he doesn't look interested, and he hasn't looked interested for a long time. I'm not a fan. I was actually, when he signed for the club, I thought, what a great bit of business, but I just haven't seen the Bissouma at Brighton. He's had the all good game, but he's went so far backwards. It's incredible. I don't know if that's linked to some of the stuff he's been doing off the pitch, but he's had a few incidents, hasn't he? And he's so far down the pecking order now. I mean, I remember Sai there talking about Archie Gray. That's the one that I really, for how poor we've been in midfield at times this year, Archie Gray was signed as a young defensive midfielder, a number 6, and he hasn't really been given that opportunity. For someone that dug us out of a hole, really, for a few months when we were really short at the back. I thought he was actually the better one of the two defenders at the time, Gray and Dragusin. I thought that Gray was potentially the better one. And, we haven't really seen any of them before today. So I really think, why not try Archie Gray in that role? At least he's young. At least he'll learn if he makes mistakes. And to be honest, he hasn't let us down too many times. There's definitely a real top player on there. I mean, I think it's, if you're a Bissouma sitting there and you've seen a young kid from Sweden who was signed as a future prospect come in, take games by the scruff of the neck, seize opportunities, and now become one of our most important players. And, I know you're going to go through the goals, Chris, but, the reaction, some of the mistakes today from the players was ridiculous. Then you see Bergvall's, where he's absolutely punching the floor. He's got it. That's the kind of fire you want to see from your players when you make an error. Bergvall's absolutely dying inside there. He's made an error. But that's a player that plays for the fans, plays for the team, plays for the manager, regardless of how difficult the situation is. I thought he was outstanding on Thursday night. For a player that young, they take on that leadership role. And leadership isn't just about standing in front of a camera. It's about being brave on the ball, brave off the ball, going forwards when all players are happy to go backwards or go sideways, taking on a shot from range, and it could go over the bar, it could go wide. No, but I believe I can affect the game, and Bissouma doesn't really do that at all. Never really think he's going to make an impact on a game. So I think it's really damning to him as an individual to see younger players who've, been had to come in difficult situations this season with injuries, and they've never let us down. Never let us down deliberately. They've tried their best, and that's all we can ask for as fans. If I was looking around that dressing room at the moment, Archie Gray and Bergville have been the two most outstanding players in the team this season, because they've given absolutely everything that they've had, and they will only improve for the experience. Whereas you look at players like Bissouma coming in and really just stinking the place out, no interest to play for the club, no interest to play for his teammates, no interest to help the manager if it's been a really difficult situation. And as you, Chris, going to every home and away game, you deserve a lot more. Forget about we're Tottenham. When you do this, every match day going fan that's paying the kind of prices the Premier League fans are paying and the kind of wages the Premier League players are getting deserve a lot more from what we're getting from some of these players at the moment. Like we said, Chris, if we lose that game 4-2 today and we walk away going, do you know what? The players left everything out there. It just wasn't our day. We can accept that as a fan. But for too many times this season, and Bissouma being one of the chief men in this, is we have seen under par, substandard, lack of effort, lack of intensity. And I think he walks off the pitch, doesn't give a toss what the fans think, doesn't give a toss about the result. Just going to next week as if nothing ever happened. And, the summer's not far away now. It won't be long before we're on the beach. We can just forget about this. And if I'm still here next season, happy days. I'll be getting decent money, playing for a big club, great training facilities. And if not, I'll get a move to another club, maybe even get a move abroad to a nice sunny spot somewhere. And life goes on. And I tell you what, they'll not be feeling the pain that we're feeling as fans. And this is the problem with a lot of modern day footballers, is they don't feel the pain that the fans do. And at the moment, Chris, it's sucking the life out of me as a fan seeing some of these players play. I would give anything to be in their position. The effect, the change for this club, and we're just not seeing it. And I don't want to keep going on about it, but we need to see an improvement over the next few games. If Ange does go, I think the only way he will go before the end of the season is if we get beat on Thursday night. But even if that does happen, I would still like to see in the last 6 Premier League games, if it is Ryan missing the end of the season, I would like to see something to hold on to for next season, because at the moment, Chris, the season could end in May and I'll be going, do you know what? August, it'll come quickly than it will for our seasons, because I'll not be looking forward to it.
So let's come to you. On 28 minutes, Tell put in a cross, flicked over the bar by Dominic Solanke. And then on 34 minutes, Maddison teed up Pape Matar for a shot, which was then blocked on the edge of the box. A good move, played out to Brennan Johnson. Played into Brennan Johnson, shot over the bar. And then just moments later, Wolves then took a 2-goal lead. Jed Spence' own goal. What did you make of it? Because the ball came in, it got headed on. Goalkeeper didn't seem to deal with it at all. Then it hit Jed Spence, and all of a sudden we're 2-0 down.
Yeah, I think it's awful, because look at that picture. There are two of their players behind our defensive line, but one of our defenders is in there. That is just absolutely awful. How can you leave players completely unmarked? Now, you could say Vicario's made a good save, but if you're going to save it, as far as I can remember, of the goalkeepers that I've played with, you push the ball to the side, not out into the middle, because it hits Spence. So for me, he's flapping again. This is just symptomatic of what goes on at the back. It's absolute chaos. And you can say, what was Spence doing way back there with Strand Larsen? Because if it had been knocked on and Spence had stood out from the previous picture, he would have been offside. But it's just absolutely dreadful defending again. And what else can you say about it? There was one point the guys made, I just want to make about Maddison, and the reason I dislike Maddison, sorry to go across to that, is that you see him around the ground. He has this sense of entitlement. Everybody's seen probably the video on YouTube where fans wait at the gate to see players and get them to sign something. He just drives off all the time. He shows disdain for the fans. He might go and raise his arms to the South Stand every now and again, but I just don't like his attitude towards, the youngsters. But that's a side issue. But going back to that goal, I go back to let's think about all the 4 goals today, and how many times have we said this? Were the 4 goals stoppable in the first place? Were they down to the great play of the opponents or our poor defending? Well, all 4 goals were avoidable. All 4 goals were absolutely avoidable. And if you're going to do that, it doesn't matter whether it's in the Premier League, the Europa League, the under-7s football that Gareth teaches. If you're going to present 4 chances a game to any team, you're going to get punished, especially at the elite level. You're going to get punished. And again, say it's unfortunate, Vicario, but again, the goalkeepers are trained, as far as I'm aware, that when you save the ball, you push it to the side of the goal, not back into the middle where it's spent. Wholly avoidable.
It could have easily been 3-0 before half time because Wolves had another opportunity in stoppage time at the end of the first half. Josh, it was 2-0 at half time. Boos from the away end. I tell you what, I just feel like I'm hearing boos every other week under Ange Postecoglou this season.
Yeah, and totally fair enough. It's just, we've got very little to cheer about. I mean, even the Southampton game, which we won, it was the most bizarre feeling ever being in the ground there because it almost felt like a pre-season game. The whole thing was very weird, and it was sort of relief. And I also think back to even only just a couple of years ago when Spurs scored, I used to go mental in the stadium. It used to be limbs, and now I barely even celebrate when Spurs score because it just, more than anything, it's relief, and more than anything, it's often because we're equalising from being 1 goal down or we've pulled a goal back. It's very rare now, it seems, that we sort of are comfortably ahead. And the whole thing is just not sustainable. It's just totally unsustainable. And Chris, I want to ask you, because obviously you keep mentioning, what people how the comments and the fans are feeling about Ange. Where do you stand on him now? Because I know, you're someone that normally gets behind a manager, but I can tell you're fed up.
I want it to work, Josh, but sadly, I feel like it's not going to work. Particularly how week by week, I feel like Ange Postecoglou is losing more and more fans. And from talking to a lot of the fans today inside Molineux Stadium, I feel like a lot of people, the patience is up, and I feel like a lot of people are looking forward to Thursday. And if we go out of the Europa League on Thursday, I feel like Ange Postecoglou, I feel like that is the end for him, because we have heard lots of different answers, excuses, whatever you want to call them this season. And, we've got all of our players back. There are no excuses. And we are playing a very, very different brand of football to what we were playing last season. Are we being entertained? No, we're not. Is it frustrating? Absolutely. I feel like we're just pinning all of our hopes on the Europa League. And the summer transfer window, for me, is going to be extremely interesting. Whether Ange Postecoglou is our manager or not, it is going to be very interesting. Will Spurs be in the Champions League next season? That's going to be interesting, because what sort of transfer window will we have with Champions League football, without Champions League football? We go back to that old point of, are the board going to back the manager, whoever it is? Will it be Ange Postecoglou? Will it be a different manager? Because, I feel, and I'm going to say this, very, very frustrated. I feel like we have gone round in circles again and again since Pochettino left the football club. We've gone through multiple different managers. I know, Si, you said about, who appointed Jose Mourinho, who appointed Antonio Conte. I saw those appointments as ambition. I saw those appointments as, finally, we're going to back these people. We're bringing in win-now managers in order to deliver trophy success and move forward as a football club. That hasn't happened. That is what is really, really frustrating for me. But to go back to your point, Josh, about Ange Postecoglou, I have been very patient with him. I've wanted it to work. I've been very empathetic towards the problems that he's had on and off the pitch in terms of injuries, etc. But when a manager comes out constantly and says, when we've got all of our players back, we're going to be an outstanding team. I get all of the changes today, but I didn't get the changes going into that Fulham game. You know, the amount of changes that we made going into the international break, that was unacceptable for me. And I feel like the players need to give a lot more. They're not doing it. Who's it going to come back down to? Of course, it's going to come back down to the manager. And I just don't feel that confidence in Ange Postecoglou anymore. And I haven't felt that since the Fulham game, which is very, very frustrating. But with that said, and I know people think I'm going to probably say a deluded comment here, you never, ever know what happens in football. You know, we could go to Germany on Thursday and get a win. And, you know, we could play, you know, superb football. It could be completely different. And we could look back on this podcast and say, bloody hell, we were all negative about, you know, this result and this performance today. And then we've just delivered that in Germany. Or it could all go wrong on Thursday. You never, ever know. So time will tell what, you know, what Ange Postecoglou's fate is going to be. You know, time will tell. Josh, I want to stay with you. What did you make of Ange Postecoglou's subs today? Because in the 55th minute, Bissouma and Sarr went off. Bentancur and Bergvall came on. What did you make of the subs today?
Well, I don't really. It's a bit of a weird one because they obviously made the only difference they made really was negative. I understand why those changes were made. I think there's a wider point that Ange is terrible at making substitutions generally. Waits far too long. But, you know, ultimately, those are changes I probably would have made too if I was the manager. So, and then they come on and they make mistakes. But yeah, the whole thing is sort of. I'll be honest. I'm almost getting to the point where I don't care anymore. I feel so detached from the team. Getting myself to even go to the stadium feels like a chore now. And obviously I'll still do it, but you know, we just sort of know the script. I refused to watch a game for the first time since being a Spurs fan. I actively refused to watch a game, which was the Chelsea game. And people might think I'm absolutely crazy for that. But I live with two Chelsea fans and I know the record at Stamford Bridge and I know what these players are giving us and I know what this manager's giving us and I know what the board's giving us. Do you really think that with a busy working life, I you know, can you understand why I just decided to do other things with my evening? Because I knew what would happen and it turned out that it was worse than what I thought would happen. I'm getting to the point where it's just, I'm ready for the season to be over. I'm not expecting anything on Thursday. I'd love to be pleasantly surprised. I just want the manager gone. I just want some of those players gone. I just want the chairman gone. You know, as far as I'm concerned, right now, you could bulldoze the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium down and build a big Tesco. For all I care, right now, that's how it feels. And, you know, we're getting fleeced by the owner paying ridiculously high prices for our tickets, season tickets. You know, and the only thing that I can praise right now really is some of the young kids. I think Bergvall and Gray have probably been our players of the season. And then on top of that, all the away fans, the people, you know, that travel land and sea to watch this team. You know, I nothing but respect to that. I just think it's just really, really sad that it's got to this point where I think all of us feel a little bit almost numb to it now.
Yeah, I agree with those comments, Josh. And I'm going to say, can you guys probably give me shorter answers because we've all got other things to be doing this evening. Gareth, let's come to you on a very short answer. What did you make of Tell's goal on the 59th minute?
It's pure luck from what I seen. He must hit the ball and it ricochets off the right back Semedo and goes into the net. Didn't really hit it with much confidence, and luckily it went in. I mean, I don't think the 2 goals were particularly great goals. I think the tail one was a bit fortunate. Decent cross from Johnson, but mistake from the defender the first time, and then his body position's all wrong for the second mistake. So 2 mistakes from the right back. So nothing really to write home about. And haven't, like, a lot of our goals recently in the Premier League haven't really been great goals. So that kind of Ange ball that Ange was talking about when he first came here, we haven't seen enough of that. The goals have dried up a lot. I know we got 2 today, but just in general that we haven't been scoring at the rate we were scoring at the start of the season and last season as well. So I don't know, Chris. I don't know what's left in the tank. Tell has got a couple of goals in his last couple of games, but I'm not convinced. I'll be surprised if we authorise the €60 million fee. They bring him on permanently, because I haven't seen enough. I don't know what his best position is. Is he a wide player? Is he a striker? Not really convinced that for €60 million we should authorise that. I mean,
yeah,
we were linked with that fella Desiree Douy all summer for the same price. Didn't believe he was the answer, and that looks like a major oversight at the moment.
Yeah. So let's come to you. Of course, Romero's mistake in the 64th minute. It finally looked like Spurs were going to get back into the game. And then 5 minutes later, it was 3-1 Wolves. What do you make of this one?
Well, it's Romero having one of his brainless moments again. He's done it a number of times this season where he's just switched off and, playing too nonchalantly, and he comes a cropper. But, it's just absolutely rank defending. And if you give the ball away like that, and again, look, if you look at could you go back that one picture, Chris? Go back to the right. So look there. Look what we've got again. A player bursting through, and there's 2 players on the back post. We were going to come in towards the back post, and one's unmarked. I'm fed up of seeing that usual stuff. Awful.
Yeah. But for those listening on audio, we can see 3 Wolves players here, 2 Tottenham Hotspur defenders, and it just looks so easy, which is very, very disappointing. So let's stay with you. On 69 minutes, James Maddison had a free kick that he put over the bar. Wolves had a free kick into the box, header over the bar on 71 minutes. On 75 minutes, Solanke and Maddison off, Kulusevski and Richarlison on. What did you make of Ange's subs today?
I thought they were again. I'm in the camp with Gareth and Josh on this. We make the changes too late. You should have put, in my opinion, Bergvall and Rodri on at half time, and then you probably should have put Richie and Kulu on at the time that Maddison and Decky. No, I'll get it right in a minute. They should have come on when Bergvall and Rodri came on. So I think he left it too late. That's my opinion on the substitutions. But I've made a note here when we made those second changes. I just said, how many chances have we made? And it's not enough. Honestly, if we're playing this front foot football, it's not enough.
Yeah.
And we give the even with Madison.
Do you think there's an acceptance because of the Europa League that today was just like we can write this game off? Because
always it's that mentality of the players. It doesn't matter. Romero was checked out. Doesn't matter today. But all I would say is, and everybody's mentioned it on the panel tonight, what about those 5,000 souls who make that trip up there? You haven't got it within your heart to give your best to Spurs fans. I think it's appalling. So, the subs were too late for me. And, our set pieces and corners, aside from the one we scored from today, which was the exception, not the rule, they're just bad. Just bad. Not good enough. Sorry.
So let's stay with you because Richarlison, of course, came off the sub bench, back on the score sheet for Tottenham. Nice to see him scoring goals again. What did you make of it?
It was. Yeah, again, I think, what do you call it? Poacher's goal. So he was in the right place at the right time. We actually got a corner right. And when we do, we seem to do all right for them. When we actually got corners right on Thursday night, we looked a threat, but they're just too few and far between. And again, I thought, well, that gives us a chance to maybe scrape a point out of it, which, although we didn't deserve it, it would have given the players and everybody a bit of a lift before Thursday night. But within a minute, we go and lose our heads again and just hand the game to Wolves. It's just absolute. For me, it's mental frailty, honestly. And, Gareth was just saying about players checking out and not playing, not being bothered about Sunday. That all just smacks of the same thing, mental frailty. And I do agree with Conte, and I do agree with Mourinho when they've called out the players for being mentally brittle. It's a thing that's run through Spurs for a very long time. It's not a new thing with this batch of players, is it? It's been there for a long, long time. And the one person who I thought was a little bit of a mentality monster, Højbjerg, is now plying his trade in France.
Yeah.
Go figure.
Yeah.
Go figure. I can't.
Gareth, finally, we're going to talk about Cunha's goal in the 86th minute. Of course, mistake from Bergvall. He looked absolutely devastated at the end of the game.
Yeah, I said that's the one. I think I said earlier, Chris, that when you look at all four goals, the reactions to the goals from the players that were responsible was chalk and cheese. I mean, Romero looked like he didn't give a toss. Spence and Vicario looked confused, and that reaction from Bergvall, he was absolutely gutted they do that. And you know what? For how well he's done this season, I can almost forgive him because, I've been really impressed with him. He's grew from, he was talented in pre-season, you could see that, but when he came in at the start, he probably thought that he wasn't ready for the Premier League, but he's got stronger physically, he's got better on the ball, and he's playing with a lot of confidence, and he drives us forward at times, and he must be looking around this dressing room and thinking, what a bunch of, what a bunch of lifeless players. He looks like he's really trying to enjoy the best of what he can, because it must be a tough dressing room to be in at the moment. But he's the one player that really takes on that responsibility. And I think, maybe with Kulusevski back, I agree with Sai that maybe those two, maybe they can grab the game by the scruff of the neck on Thursday night. And I think Maddison's one of those players. When our players are playing well, he'll start to look good. So you might see Maddison chipping in, and maybe Son, he's due a good game. He's been awful for a long time. Maybe he can have a good night, but I think we're relying on ifs and buts for Thursday night. But Bergvall and Kulusevski give you a little bit of hope because they can create and they can, drive the team forward. They're the kind of players that take responsibility and show leadership. So I was gutted for Bergvall. But Chris, is there anything more Spurs than a player being booed by his own home crowd? They score and send the place wild, and for him to do some sort of gesture to the home fans, about what they were booing him, obviously because of he says that he wants to move on, really, and I think the manager's been critical of him. I know he was suspended there, but he didn't start today, and I mean they come on and do that at the end. That was really low. A player that's clearly not on the side of his fans scores the goal that clinches the game and sinks Spurs even lower. And that was just the epitome of our performance today, that a player that's no longer wanted by its own fans wraps up the 3 points. Absolutely criminal.
3 other results in the Premier League on Sunday: Chelsea 2, Ipswich 2, Liverpool 2, West Ham United 1, and Newcastle beating Manchester United 4-1 at St James's Park. Final question for you all. Si, let's start with you. Thursday night, away in Germany, Frankfurt in the quarterfinal, second leg. Of course, it is 1-1 at the moment. What's the score going to be? How are Spurs going to set up? Is it going to be a better performance? Are we going to be smiling?
I have no idea what the score is going to be, because that does depend on what Spurs turns up. In terms of the players, I would hope that Kulu starts. I would hope that Van der Ven and Udogie and Porro come back in for me. I would hope that Bentancur plays like he did last Thursday, and Bergvall and Kulu in front of him. And for me, I would go with Tell, Solanke and Johnson across the front because I've lost faith in Sonny this season. The bloke has my heart. I'll love him as a Spurs legend forever, but he's just not got it at the moment. So I personally wouldn't start him. Score, draw probably, and then penalty shootout. And I just don't know which way it goes, but I can't see us winning there. And you know, Chris, I am one of the most optimistic. I thought we needed a lead from the first leg and we were capable of getting a draw. But now that we haven't, I think the best we can do is a draw and then we'd be relying on penalties. But always hopeful. Pick the right team to start off with, get the players, and I think their attitude will be better. Sadly, and I do say that sadly because it should be right. They're professional footballers and they should have their attitude correct. But yeah, scrape through on penalties. Let's go for that.
Josh, same questions to you.
Oh, yeah, 3-1 Frankfurt.
Short and sweet.
That's it. Yeah.
The thing is, of course, I'm traveling out to Germany, right? And I would never leave my house if I didn't think that Spurs had a chance of winning the game, right? And the funny thing is like you don't know what Tottenham is going to turn up. We could, like I said, we could go there on Thursday and get a great result, and we're all smiling and we're through to the semi-finals and everyone is happy. But then, of course, you could get a performance and a result like today. And I know that stadium, I've been there before to see Frankfurt and, of course, to go to the Euros as well. And that stadium is electric. The atmosphere there is unbelievable, incredible. So let's hope that Spurs can somehow get a result and put in a real shift on Thursday. Gareth, what are you going to go for?
Chris, just about advice. Drink plenty of German beer before the game kicks off because the German beer is lovely, as you probably know. So drink plenty of beer to make at least the trip worthwhile, and maybe we'll forget some elements of the performance if it goes wrong. But I was on a podcast last week, Chris, and it says 1-1 for the home game, and it says 2-0 defeat for the away game. So I'm going to stick with it. I feel like I will be doing your podcast a disservice to come on here and be delusional or lacking in integrity. So I have to go with what I feel will happen, and I feel that we'll probably get a substandard performance and be beaten by an average Frankfurt team because I don't think they're a great side from what I've seen. Spurs were nowhere near their best on Thursday. They were better than what they've been in recent weeks, but still there was a lot more we could have done better. And to be honest, we should have won the game 2 or 3-1. We had the crossbar 3 times, I think, and their keeper had a great game. So, if we can play like that, we have a chance. But I would expect Frankfurt to be better in front of their home crowd. And I just have no confidence in us handling the atmosphere, handling the occasion. And I wouldn't be surprised after 5 minutes if we're 1-0 down. And I just don't see a way back. We need to get through the first 10 or 15 minutes, keep it tight. And to be honest, size on a bit of penalty shootout, I would bite your hand off for a penalty shootout now because I don't see the way I get the result. But look, I've been wrong before, and I'll be happy to be wrong again. I'll be watching the game, and there will be some part of my heart telling me we can do it, but the head will be telling me, "Come on, drink a few more pints."
Love it,
Gareth. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Where can people find you on social media and what you're up to at the moment?
Thanks for having me, Chris. It's been great to come on. It really killed a couple hours after that game. I'm looking forward to the golf now. But I feel like if I hadn't come on this podcast, I would have been not even wanting to watch the golf. So I'm delighted. Hopefully Rory McIlroy can win the Masters tonight. But you can find me at Gareth Hotspur. And you can find me probably sitting in an Irish bar drinking a pint, suffering, watching this Tottenham team.
Thank you so much, Gareth. Si, thank you so much for your input this evening. Where can people find you?
You can find me on XCC2020CO67. You'll find me on there, and I'm always blathering on about stuff Spurs. Always a pleasure to be on, and it was nice to be on with Josh and Gareth because I watched them for a long time, so it's nice to share the screen with them. Always a pleasure being on with you, and if we do win on penalties on Thursday, you can guarantee that I will be on the floor somewhere with drink flowing out of my mouth and having a good time.
So I thank you so much.
Thanks for having
Josh,
me, Chris.
thank you so much for your input this evening.
Pleasure. Sorry,
always
for the
great having you on.
negativity.
Where can people find you?
At Josh UTV on Twitter.
We do it.
At least we're laughing at the end of it.
Sorry, Josh, Gareth, thank you so much. Yes, thank you so much for all of your input.
Chris.
Thanks for watching, everyone. There's nearly 3,000 people watching this this stream this evening, so thanks so much for all of your input and all of your comments today. Hopefully we'll be smiling on Thursday. I know some people are calling me deluded, but you never ever know with this Tottenham Hotspur team. It has been a very for the Europa League. Let's hope that we can go through to the semi-finals. We'll be back with another edition of the Spurs Chat podcast on Thursday. Until then, enjoy your week somehow. Come on, you Spurs.